We went 42 days between post-game shows after a win, from September 2nd up until Saturday night here, October 14th. I think I counted that right. 42 days between post-game shows after a win. And so it's also been 42 days since we did a Monday podcast, a Monday Morning Pitt after a win. But here we are. It's the day after Pitt's win over Louisville. And we've got some thoughts as we sort of have let our brains kind of get settled after the weekend. So we'll talk about it some 48 hour later. Recollections and reflections and reactions to Pitt's upset win over number 14 Louisville and what it means for the Panthers going forward here on the Morning Pitt on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Yeah, I figured since it was a victory, since Pitt won on Saturday night, something they haven't done a whole lot, they haven't done since the season opener against Wofford, I figured I should bust out the Pitt logo, Pitt branded home field apparel. I know it's basketball, but, I mean, it's a really sweet basketball. Look at that rock on there. Look at that Panther dribbling his basketball. Pretty sweet logo. Great, high-quality, comfortable shirt. Go to homefieldapparel.com, and you can get your, I think they still have this. I hope they still have this look available because it's one of the best shirts they've got, I think. And they've got some pretty excellent stuff out there overall. Go check it out, homefieldapparel.com, for some of the sweetest Pitt gear you're going to find. I kept saying that even though Pitt was losing, you still wanted to look good. Well, now Pitt won, and so you want to celebrate and look good. Get one of these shirts like I have here at homefieldapparel.com. And don't forget, when you go to homefieldapparel.com and buy something from them, if it's your first order, you can use the promo code LAIR23, LAIR23, and get 15% off. That's a great deal. You're going to get some of the best Pitt stuff. You're going to find t-shirts, sweatshirts, joggers, dad hats, bomber jackets, all those kinds of things that they've got at homefieldapparel.com. It's a great look. I mean, you can see that, right? I mean, that's an outstanding look right there, and it's a high quality shirt. I mean, this shirt is so comfortable, it's so soft, it holds its shape. I've washed this thing a million times and it's still holding on to its shape. I hate that when t-shirts come, the bottom gets all stretched out and the neck and everything. This thing fits as well as it did the day I took it out of the package from Home Field. And that's what they give you. Really high quality gear that looks great. Homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code LAIR23. It's LAIR23 to get 15% off your first order. That's the promo for them. And then, of course, for us right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com, we ask you to like this video and subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com is where you're going to find all of our Pitt video content, these daily morning Pitt videos, our weekly live show on Wednesday nights, and our post-game show, which was a lot more fun on Saturday night than it was, the previous weekends. I guess 2 weeks ago they had an off week, so we didn't have to worry about having a post-game show after a loss. But, I mean, yeah, it's been a bit, even though there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of viewers, and, it gets very entertaining and engaging and exciting after a loss. It's a lot more fun after a win. People were feeling much better, I think, after that game on Saturday night, and the post-game show reflected. It was a lot of fun. You want to make sure you don't miss it, so subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You can turn on notifications. You'll get an alert sent to your phone whenever we go live or we post new videos, so you'll never have to worry about missing our live streams on Wednesday night at 8:30 or after the game with the Panther-Lair post-game show. Of course, last thing we ask you to do, go check out Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com, the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. We cover it all at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards to interact with hundreds and thousands of other Pitt fans. All day, every day, Panther-Lair.com. All right, it's been 2 days, day and a half, however you want to do the math since the end of that, and depending on when you watch this video, it could be anywhere from like 30 hours to 50 hours since the end of the Pitt-Louisville game on Saturday night. A 38-21 win for the Panthers, upsetting number 14 Louisville. Cardinals dropped to number 21 in the AP poll, so they took a hit after losing on the road against a one-win team. But I imagine Jeff Brom and his players and coaches would come out and tell you that Pitt played better than you would expect from a one-win team, probably because they are better than you would expect from a one-win team. They're far from perfect. They've got a lot to improve. They have a lot of areas where they need to continue to grow, and some areas where they probably have a ceiling on how much growth is possible this season. But they are better than a one-win team, and some elements finally started to come together on Saturday night. And it's pretty remarkable. What I kept thinking about throughout the weekend, by which I mean yesterday and heading into this morning, I kept thinking about it, and I wrote an article about it on Panther-Lair.com yesterday morning. It's funny. We spent all week, I mean, really the last 2 weeks, and a lot of time before that, but certainly the last 2 weeks, we spent a lot of time focusing on that guy right there, Christian Veilleux, and the position he plays and the role, the role of the quarterback and how important the quarterback is for this offense and how much the offense has struggled and how much the quarterback has struggled and how they needed to change the quarterback, and then they finally changed the quarterback, and maybe the quarterback was going to play tight end, and would this improve the offense? How much better would Christian Veilleux be? And there was a blue face, and there were all these things we talked about. And then while we focused on all those other things, while we focused on Christian Veilleux, and while we focused on the improvement of the offense, and we focused on how much changing quarterbacks would impact things on that side of the ball, sort of while none of us were watching or paying attention, Pitt's defense just snuck up and won that game in the second half. And the more I thought about it over the course of the weekend, the more convinced I am that that's true. That Pitt's defense snuck up and won that game in the second half. It's a 24-0 shutout, which the 0 right there is a huge testament to the strength of the defense and the success of the defense in the second half against Louisville. The fact that 7 of those 24 points came from the defense themselves scoring that touchdown, MJ Devonshire with the 86-yard interception return. And then turning away Louisville as much as they did, as often as they did, and as many times as they did, particularly when Louisville got inside the 30, got inside the 25, and got inside the 20. Pitt had 3 turnovers, and all of them were deep in Pitt territory. Huge plays at big moments in the game, critical situations where the defense needed to make a play, and they made it over and over and over again, especially in the second half. You look at the second half for Louisville, 8 possessions, right? 8 possessions. 4 of them end in turnover on downs. 2 of them end in interceptions. 1 ends in a punt, and 1 ends in a missed field goal. And I think what's really remarkable is Louisville, on their 8 possessions, they drove into Pitt territory in the second half we're talking about. 5 of those 8 possessions got into Pitt territory. And 4 of those 5 got inside the 30. Right, so they were driving. 3 of their 8 possessions in the second half gained at least 50 yards. They were driving. They were moving the ball. And I'm not going to say, oh, it's like bend but don't break. But, I mean, Pitt was giving up plays. They were giving up yards. Louisville still had 200 yards in the second half. Jack Plummer finished with 350 passing yards. A whole bunch of that coming in the second half of that game. I have the stats right here. He had 151 passing yards in the first half, so almost 200 passing yards in the second half. A lot of it trying to catch up, and they were making plays. They were making throws. They were converting and moving the ball down the field. But every single time, the defense stepped up. The defense stepped up. First drive of the second half, Louisville's at 4th and inches on its own 34, and Jeff Brom decides to go for it. Questionable decision. He was asked about it a bunch of times after the game. Jack Plummer was asked about it after the game. Jack Plummer said, man, we just got to be able to get a couple inches there. Maybe a little arrogant to attempt it in that situation. It ended up leading to a field goal in a 17-point game. That's negligible significance. The next drive, though, Louisville, 3rd and 10 from their own 25. Solomon DeShields gets a sack. Costs them 11 yards. They end up having to punt. That was the drive when they punted. Their next drive, Louisville drives to the Pitt 20. Solomon DeShields bumps, I think it was Jamari Thrash, off his route. Legally or illegally, it doesn't matter. And MJ Devonshire makes the interception, runs 86 yards. And it's interesting because Jeff Brom and Jeff Plummer more than Brom, but they both said it, that the receiver got bumped off his route on that play. And I thought, watching the play, I was like, how did Plummer miss by that much? That throw was way off the mark because it looked like it went straight to MJ Devonshire. Something must have happened. And so maybe there was some contact there. But here's my thing. These officials were not holding back when it came to throwing flags on Pitt for defensive pass interference or defensive holding. All right, they weren't holding back. It's not like they were just letting them play out there. They threw a lot of penalty flags, particularly on Pitt when it came to pass interference. If there was something worthy of a flag there in the view of the officials, they would have thrown it, but they didn't, and Pitt gets a touchdown out of it. Next drive, Louisville's driving again. They're down to the Pitt 22. Plummer throws to, who was it? Jimmy Callaway. Ball bounces off his hands. A.J. Woods gets the interception, turns him away. Next drive, they're down to the Pitt 29. Actually, at the 36. Facing a 3rd and 10 at the 36. Plummer throws for Thrash. Thrash catches it on like this little out route thing that they'd been doing for a lot of success, getting like 7 to 10 yards, 8 to 12 yards, somewhere around there every time. But Shane Simon makes a huge tackle, stops him for a 7-yard gain, and they have to kick a field goal, which they ultimately miss. Next drive, Louisville's at the Pitt 46. They cross into Pitt territory. 4th and 6 from the 46. P.J. O'Brien breaks up a pass on 4th down. Next drive, they're at only the Louisville 37, but it's a 4th and 3. Thrash slipped. So, that one wasn't necessarily Pitt, but the plays before that, MJ Devonshire had a pass breakup, and they got made a 7-yard stop on 3rd and 10 to force the 4th and 3. And then you get to the final one. P.J. O'Brien makes one more pass breakup in the end zone. On Louisville's final drive, they got to the Pitt 23, and they break it up. The defense stepped up time and time again, and they didn't play a perfect game. They didn't shut down Louisville. I don't even think they defended the run all that well. Like I said after the game, Louisville finished with, what was it, 80 net rushing yards on 33 attempts. That's great, 2.4 yards per carry. Well, Jack Plummer officially had like 6 carries for minus 47. If you just go by the running backs, Turner and Guerendo and Jordan, they had like 27 carries for $127 and 2 touchdowns, which is almost 5 yards per carry. So they were running the ball well. Pitt's run defense didn't make some great improvements. They got 4 sacks, but I feel like they, as someone pointed out to me on Twitter or on the message boards, that they still had to bring a lot of extra pressure. They weren't really getting home with the front 4 exclusively, or at least consistently. And so a lot of the issues that exist, and they had a lot of missed tackles. I mean, they were still letting guys get away with yards after contact. I think Louisville's runners, just in the ground game, had more than 100 yards after contact, largely due to missed tackles. And so a lot of the issues that dogged them against Virginia Tech, against West Virginia, against Cincinnati, the run defense, the poor tackling, not really getting consistent pressure with your front 4 on the quarterback, none of those issues entirely went away. But what did happen, what did change, what did improve from those first 5 games was that the defense made big plays in big spots in the second half. And they stepped up. And that second half, even though they gave up 200 yards, let me see if I have it here. I want to get the exact numbers for Louisville in the second half. 207 total yards. Their rushing was not good. They had 12 rush attempts for 8 yards. But some of that was lost due to sacks. They threw for 199 yards. Converted 2 of 8 third downs, not great, but they were stopped for 0 for 4 on 4th down, and had 2 turnovers. Pitt's defense stepped up in those big moments, in those big situations, and they didn't lose their heart. They didn't lose their fight. They kept going. You know what they said? They said, it was as if they turned to you and said, I said that I will do it, and it will be done. Which is actually a quote from the Blue Vase video. I said that I will do it, and it will be done. I mean, that might be a paraphrase. I might not have the exact wording right. But that was sort of the main thrust of that Blue Vase thing, and the video that inspired the whole Blue Vase iconography and symbolism is I said that I will do it, and it will be done. And Pitt's defense went out there in the second half, and they said that they would do it, and it was done. And they shut him out. They gave up yards, but they made big plays in almost every in every instance. I mean, 8 drives, no points. With, 4 turnover on downs and 2 interceptions. Huge step-up performance. Big boost, I think, for this defense, for this young defense. And I don't think enough can be said about what we're talking about when we talk about youth. And I'll probably talk about this throughout the week. Youth and inexperience. When you look at Pitt's stat sheet from this game, defensive stat sheet, leading tackler for Pitt, Javon McIntyre, first year as a starter. Secondly, he had 9 tackles. Second leading tackler, a couple of guys had 7 tackles. One of those guys was 7. P.J. O'Brien, first year starter. Solomon DeShields, first year starter. Yeah, he played on the Delta defensive package, the 3rd down package last year, but you know what he was doing? He was just rushing the passer. He didn't have a lot of every down responsibilities when you're playing in third and long situations where you're just trying to rush the passer. Now he's playing every down. He's bouncing back and forth between the two outside linebacker spots, playing some money, playing some star, depending on who else is on the field. And he's growing into his role. Solomon Shields had 7 tackles and a sack and a quarterback hurry and just generally impacted the game. And I don't think it's something as sort of cliched, nor as, and more importantly, I don't think it's something as sudden as just the light turned on. It's not about a light turning on. It's about a process of growth, of getting more comfortable on the field, of understanding what you're supposed to do, understanding how to do it, and feeling comfortable out there, and being able to make plays, being able to read, being responsible, sticking to your assignments, and making plays. And you're seeing nothing changed. Solomon Shields is still the same guy he was at the beginning of the season, the same guy he was last year, same guy he was before that. He's a great athlete. He's a big athlete. He's built like an NFL guy, and he runs like an NFL guy. But what he needed and what he was lacking was the experience, being on the field, playing in these every down situations, run and pass, reading keys, being an integral part of the base defense. And that's what he is now. I mean, he's made 6 starts now this season. He's still a first-year starter, but he's growing into that role, and he's making that positive impact. Javon McIntyre, P.J. O'Brien, Donovan McMillan had 5 tackles in that game on Saturday. And you can go down the list. And yeah, Marquez Williams had 7 tackles. M.J. Devonshire had 6 tackles. Those guys made big plays. A.J. Woods had 4 tackles and had an interception. M.J. Devonshire had an interception. Shane Simon had 3 tackles and a sack and had a big tackle on that 1 third down play like I talked about. It's not like you're only getting big plays from the inexperienced guys. The veterans are making plays too, but there's so many inexperienced guys on this defense that you're seeing them rise to the occasion more and more as time goes on. And here was a game where they stepped up and made big plays to win the game. They couldn't do it against Virginia Tech. They more or less did it against West Virginia. You only give up 17 points. You played a pretty good game. They had a really rough first half against Cincinnati. But I think this defense it's coming into its own. It's growing into its own, and every year you're going to have starters to replace. But when you look at the bulk of this defense and where the plays are coming from, and the age of those guys, the experience level of those guys, and the likelihood that they're going to come back, or the possibility that they could come back, you're seeing a foundation come together for this defense for the future. And you can extend it over the other side too, to some extent, when you talk about the offensive line. When you look at the offensive line that they started on Saturday, of left to right, Branson Taylor, Jason Collier, Terrence Moore, B.J. Williams, and Ryan Baer. And did I mix up the guards again? I keep forgetting which guard started at which spot. Yeah, Collier started at left guard. I keep mixing that up. But those 5 guys, Collier's the only one in there who's a senior. Baer Taylor, I think, is a redshirt junior. Terrence Moore is a redshirt sophomore. B.J. Williams is a true freshman, and Ryan Baer is a redshirt freshman. And when Branson Taylor got hurt and Baer had to move, Baer moved over to left tackle, and they brought in Terrence Enos at right tackle. I think he's a redshirt sophomore as well. And so you've got youth and inexperience all getting a lot of snaps, getting a lot of playing time, getting valuable experience, so that when they come back next year, you should be even better positioned for success. There's a lot of other things that go into it. You got to get the quarterback position figured out. You need your wide receivers to continue stepping up, but Kenny Johnson looks positive there. And there are a lot of things from Saturday night's game that are troubling. I mean, they can't sort of go into a hole offensively in the second half like they did. Although they ended up still scoring 2 touchdowns in the half. They ended up with 4 touchdowns total in the game. It's the most they've scored against an FBS team this season. So there's something positive to take from that. I think you like some of the throws that Christian Baer made. Touchdown to Bub Means was a great throw. The touchdown to Kanate Mumfield at the end of the game on 4th down was a beauty. It was one of the prettiest passes we've seen thrown all season. The throw down the sideline to Kenny Johnson was a great play. Great play by Johnson. Great ball by Baer. But we'll spend a lot of time talking about that over the course of the week. I really think the defense gets a lot of credit here. And you might want to give a game ball to Christian Baer. First career start, throws 2 touchdowns, doesn't throw any interceptions, plays pretty well, despite completing 12 of 26. we'll talk about that a lot this week. You might want to give a game ball to him. I'm giving it to the defensive guys because I think their struggles have slid under the radar because the offense has been so bad, but I think it has frustrated those guys. I think the players and coaches on defense have been really frustrated with their own performance. People kept wondering, are they going to point the fingers at the offense? Are they going to get frustrated with the offense? Are they going to, is the locker room going to fracture? Are they going to, turn on each other? And I don't think that was going to happen because I think the defensive players and the defensive coaches were so frustrated with their own performances that they didn't really have time to get mad about Phil Dracovic or anything like that because they had to deal with their own issues. Coming out of this game, they've got to feel good about the steps they took to step up and make big plays when they need to be made and win that game. And I don't want to take anything away from the offense scoring 2 touchdowns and a field goal in the second half. The defense won that game. No points, 4 turnovers on down, however you want to say it, 2 interceptions, a punt, a missed field goal, and not dominance, but they built a wall around the end zone and said, you're not getting in. And one way or the other, by any means, if we want to use their phrase, we're going to stop you from getting in. I said that I would do it, and it will be done. And they did it. All right, it's going to be a fun week, I think, talking about this team, talking about the things they did well, areas where they need to improve as they get ready for a game at Wake Forest on Saturday afternoon. Wake Forest is a team that they can beat. Maybe. Are we going to get high enough on this game on Saturday night to say that they should beat Wake Forest? Wake Forest doesn't look very good. They've got their own quarterback issues as well. So it could be an opportunity to stack a couple wins here. We'll see, but we'll talk about it a lot this week. Make sure you like this video and subscribe, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Head over to Home Field. Get that sweet Pitt shirt with that sweet basketball dribbling Panther like I've got on right now. Homefieldapparel.com. Get the promo code Lair23 so you get 15% off your first order. And then head over to the website, Panther-Lair.com, for all the Pitt sports news and conversation on the message boards. Thanks for tuning in this morning. Hope you had a great weekend. I imagine you probably did. Pitt won on Saturday. Steelers didn't even play yesterday, so you didn't have to have any frustrations about that. Hope it was a good weekend for you. Enjoy your Monday. Have a great start to the week, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow morning here on the Morning Pit, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.